You know, I found in my career the most difficult thing in life is to change something that is in place. It doesn't matter how stupid it is, if it's in place, it's hard to change.
Maybe that's a good point to ask about regulation. You know, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, Jay Powell came out today and said, look, we have enough regulation, we don't need any more, maybe we need to loosen it even a little bit. You know, you're already hearing protests about that. Where do you think we are in terms of banking regulation and also mutual fund regulation?
Well, I like regulation as little as anybody else. It can be intrusive, it can be detailed, it can be bureaucratic, it can be unevenly administered, it can be unfair, but most regulations that we have for mutual funds and for banks are regulations that we earned. We did something wrong and we're paying a price for it. I mean, think of the mutual fund market timing scandals, a moral outrage. And not the only moral outrage. We could go into moral outrage as a separate component of the talk, Ronna. Funds went out of business, or almost out of business, that had done that because investors saw they were in the wrong place. On the banking side, you know, I'm not a total banking expert at all, but I think the banking regulations, there are probably rough edges. But the idea of repealing the bill, Sarbanes-Oxley bill, is just plain crazy. It did a lot of very good things for us, continues to do good things for us. And I happened to be the chairman of an audit committee for Instinet at that time, independent director, and I was the chairman of the audit committee. And man, did we go over all the filings you had to do. And the board of directors really depended on me to work directly with the auditors, which I did, not with the management, but with the auditors, to make sure we complied fully with the various provisions of the Act. And they were painful, but they were right, they were correct, they were in the right direction. They brought things to light that had not been to light. So I'm not in favor of any vast overturning of Sarbanes-Oxley at all.
Dodd-Frank.
Or Dodd-Frank, excuse me.
Yeah.
The previous bill.
Yeah,
that was
no,
good
it's
enough.
all right. It's hard to keep track.
No, thank you.
But so do you think your judgment then is that Dodd-Frank has taken us to a pretty good place? You think it's a good piece of legislation?
I think on balance an excellent piece of legislation. Now, there are always little things you can do, and it's hard to administer, you know. I don't know what's going to happen to the so-called Volcker rule. It's a very hard rule to administer. It's aimed in the right direction, but it's very difficult to dictate behavior, to dictate ethics, to dictate morals, to dictate standards. So you try and do it legislatively, and that's never an easy job. It's often unfair, and I think if you can find those areas where it cuts too deeply, you know, gets into the muscle and toward the bone, it can be amended. But then you get to, I don't want to get into politics particularly here, but try and get something done at the Congress, or try and get anything done. You know, I found in my career the most difficult thing in life is to change something that is in place. It doesn't matter how stupid it is, if it's in place, it's hard to change. And you go through the convoluted legislative process, the politics of it all, particularly at this time in our nation's history. And there are no easy answers. I mean, that's, you know, everybody in the room knows that without my telling them.